Hello everyone, my name is Joaquin Briceno with Briceno Arts. Welcome to my first tutorial here with After Effects. Today I will be focusing on the hologram effect. Now before I begin, I'd like to give special thanks to the VideoCopilot.net crew in which they have provided a plugin called Opticle Flares, which is what we're going to be using for today's tutorial. Now, Opticle Flares is a plugin for After Effects, and you can purchase the plugin at videocopilot.net. I have included a link in my website that can get you there directly. Also, I picked out a few circles, and you can create your own on Photoshop and save them as PNG files. You can create anything in your hologram, but these circles here, they're gonna go into the hologram itself, and they're PNG files, and you could pretty much just do whatever you want with these guys, and you can increase the size, scale them up or down, do whatever you want, as long as you create your own in Photoshop, or you can even simply pick these out too as well. It just depends on what you want to include in your hologram. These right there, you're going to recognize them as we go into the tutorial further, and then also you'll recognize them right here as well. Alright, so first things first, obviously we want to open up After Effects. This is a completely brand new file. It hasn't even been saved. It doesn't even have a project name yet to it. The only thing that I have in here is the clip and the two circles that I'm going to be including into my hologram. Cool. These are PNG files, and this is a .avi file. So the first thing is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my footage and I'm going to drag it into a new composition. You want to make sure that you have it at a half resolution, not full. It'll make our job a lot easier and quicker. Right now, the best thing is for us to be able to work quick as opposed to working with too much complexity. So just make sure that you have it at half, so it'll make it easier on us. I trimmed my composition, my footage down to the point where we're about to turn on the hologram, up to the point where he's just still messing around with it and just about to turn it off. So we're just pretty much going to be concentrated on getting the hologram turned on and then animated along with the touch of the actor. The first things first, we want to go ahead and track our cell phone here, the iPhone. We want After Effects to be able to create an object that can be able to stay with the phone at all times, and the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use After Effects' Mocha. So just make sure that you have the footage highlighted. Let's go to animation and then hit track in Mocha, and what's gonna happen is Mocha is gonna get started, is gonna get brought up. No, I don't want to register, and then it's gonna import the footage into Mocha. Press OK. I'm gonna have to say yes to override since I've done this before, and now you have your footage in Mocha. Now this is the entire Mocha interface. I will go ahead and include a few links about Mocha on the website so you guys can learn a little bit more about what Mocha really is. But at this point right now, just for the sake of the tutorial, the only thing I want you guys to really focus on is this little hand tool right here and the magnifying glass. The hand tool, you can use it to move your image around, and the magnifying glass, you can use it to zoom in or out. The other shortcuts are simply press your middle mouse button and it'll move your picture around, or you can simply select the Z button and hold, and then just left click and drag in and out so you can zoom in and out as well. So that's how you navigate. Okay, so the first things first, we're gonna go ahead and get the X spline layer tool, and we want to go ahead and track our cell phone, and we want to make sure that we're at our first frame. So I'm gonna zoom into our cell phone as much as possible. I really don't want to zoom way in too much, but just enough so I can actually give Mocha something proper to track on. And I'm with the X spline tool selected, I'm gonna go ahead and start outlining my phone. This looks pretty good. And then you close it. Now once you already have outlined the object that you want Mocha to track, you can always adjust it just before we go any further. And it's always important to do this because you want to give Mocha enough room for error. So the bigger of an area, the better it is for Mocha. But you know, this may take a couple of tries or so. Usually it'll get it the first time. It just depends on the artist as well. I'd like to be a lot more of a perfectionist, so I really like Mocha to actually do a good job. So okay, cool. So we already tracked our phone. You know, you could put it all the way up here if you want as well. But for the sake of the tutorial, like again, I'm not gonna get too detailed with it. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom out. And I don't know why, but I like to zoom all the way out just before I hit track forward. For some reason, I like to see the entire picture. Now, before I hit track forward, and what this is once we hit track forward, Mocha is going to track this footage frame by frame by frame by frame, and during so it's going to try to stay within the boundaries of this object. Okay, now just before we do that, in this motion dialog box down here, we want to make sure that your perspective option is selected. That means that whenever this phone moves up or down, left or right, Mocha will also interpret a perspective view of this object, so that shape should change. So if this thing moves up or down, the object, so will the shape of our outline. Okay, and we'll see that as soon as Mocha is done tracking forward. So once that's selected, go ahead and hit track forward. Once you do, Mocha will start tracking every frame by frame all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm gonna hit track forward and I'm gonna let Mocha do its job from there. Mocha is done doing its forward tracking on our footage here. And as you can see, the end result here, our outline is still keeping up with our phone, which is really good. Now the next step is for us to actually analyze this tracking and see how well Mocha was able to keep up with our object. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go ahead and we can scroll this thing back and forth. As we go into our first frames here, it looks like Mocha is actually doing a pretty good job trying to keep up with it. But then as we go further, we can see that Mocha at this point is starting to deviate a little bit away from it now. So you can always get that fixed. And the way we're going to do that is by simply selecting the pick tool, and you could rearrange your points at any frame you want. And once you rearrange them at this frame, they should readjust in other frames as well. So, and you see now the frames over here start to change up a little bit, which, you know, that's okay. For the sake of the tutorial, again, I'm not going to get too detailed with it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut forward to the point where I have adjusted mine enough to where Mocha is able to track a little bit better. Now, for the sake of making yours look even better, a lot better than mine, a lot better than this, you can always go ahead and take your time doing the tracking in Mocha, going back, making sure that it actually kept up the way it should have kept up. You know, and some examples are, you know, very easy to find. You know, like for this one, for example, this one actually deviated a little bit away from the points that I wanted to keep up with, and that's okay. But the good thing is that Mocha kept up with the actual object throughout the entire time. Now, one thing I want you guys to understand is that once it gets to about this point, that is okay. And the reason why I accept this here, the reason why I accept that is because in the motion dialog box here, our perspective option is selected. And that means that whenever this moves up or down, Mocha is trying to determine its perspective view from the camera, or from the angle of the camera. That means that if this thing went up, this shape is gonna minimize, of course, because now it's not tracking flat out what the object is now it's, you know, now it's trying to track its perspective view according to the angle of the lens. So in that, it's okay. Now also another reason why I'm actually feeling okay about it is because, as we saw in our footage, the hologram is not even going to be anywhere on top of this object. Right here we can possibly feather it out a little bit more so we can make it look a little bit more realistic. But if this object was to be on top of this, it'd probably be a problem. But because it's always going to take place on top of our phone, it's not much of a big of an issue. Alright, so as you can see, I had to make a few arrangements here. I had to All these little frames that you see here, that's where you had make some changes based on the original tracking data that Mocha had provided. So I made a change here, I made a change here, 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 and here, and here, and here. I had to make quite a few changes just so I'm, satisfied with my outcome. Next step is to hit export tracking data, and then you're gonna get the export tracking data window. Now we're gonna go ahead and get and select this list, and out of the list we're gonna select After Effects corner pin supports motion blur. Select that and then select copy to clipboard. Once that's done, you can collapse or minimize Mocha, and we're gonna go back into After Effects, and just before we do anything we're gonna go ahead and create a new null object. By doing that, we're simply gonna either, in this area here, you can either right click, new, and select null object, or you can simply go to layer, new, and select null object. It'll create a new null object here for you in the layers. Now I'm gonna hit right click here and I'm gonna rename my new null object tracking data. You can pretty much name it whatever you want, but I like to stay consistent, so I'm gonna name it tracking data. Make sure that it's highlighted, and next is we're gonna go ahead and hit edit, paste. And what we just did is we just told After Effects to get the data that we got from Mocha, the tracking information from Mocha, and we pretty much we copied it by simply selecting copy to clipboard, and then we pasted it into this layer. Now if you select this layer and hit P, it'll give you all the information on the position of the tracking data just for this layer. So now if you noticed, when you look at your picture, the null object is now being tracked into that data that we had created from Mocha. So when you go back and forth, you'll see that the null object is now keeping up with your phone. Now the next step is to go into the effect controls window, and we can now delete the corner pin effect here. And we don't need that now because all the information that we need is right here. The next step is we're gonna go ahead and we want to turn this layer into a 3D object. And by doing that is, since I'm in this window, simply select toggle switches and modes, and it'll put you in a different window here. So the only way, there's only two windows here, so you can just toggle back and forth by selecting this button right here. If you're in this one, just make sure you click it once, and then you'll be in this window. And all we have to do is just select this box right here, this little 3D box right there. Just make sure that you highlight it. It'll put the little 3D box right there to signify that this layer is now a 3D layer. Now if you notice, well, now we have a XYZ object here that is now tracking with a null object. That means that it is now a 3D object. Okay, and you can go back and forth. My computer's taking a while to render it. That's why we always want to put it at half, but you just want to make sure that it's tracking properly as you want it. Now if it's not tracking as properly as you want it to be tracking, you would have to redo the step with Mocha. All you have to do is simply go back to Mocha and redo the whole thing again until you get the result that you're looking for. If you run into a situation like, for example, when you highlight the tracking data and you hit P, and for some reason your frames began like around here somewhere, and right here it's clear, that's because you probably had the cursor here and then you copied and pasted. The step that I forgot to let you guys know is that you want to make sure that this cursor is at the beginning. It's at its very first frame before you hit edit and paste the information from Mocha to this layer. The reason being is because if you have it over here and then you select edit paste, it'll paste it from here on forward. So just make sure that you have this all the way at the beginning and then you hit paste. That way it'll paste it from the very first frame. That way the tracking data is actually keeping up with the phone itself, because it's only data. Remember, this layer does not know what's going on in the footage, doesn't have any information on the footage visibly at all. All it's doing is just has some information and some data. That's all it is. And in order for it to actually keep up with the footage and actually track what you want it to track, it has to be on the same exact frame with this layer. Cool. what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna go ahead and create another null object, and here I'm gonna rename this null object guide. Now when it comes to holograms, guides are very, very important. And the reason being is because it's going to allow us to identify which are the points of contact. That means that the character at some point, he was making contact with the hologram. And those are the points that we want to identify, because it's going to make it a lot easier for us to animate our hologram and actually make it look like the character is actually touching and messing around and having some type of interaction with the hologram. Next step is we want to go ahead and make sure that our guide is highlighted, which is that second null object that we just created. And let's go ahead and we're going to put guides at the point where the actor makes contact with our hologram. Also, another thing we want to identify is where does the hologram turn on. So in my case, right here looks like the actor already touched that initiation button. So he touched it and then he looks up, like about there. That's where I want my hologram to turn on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna scroll up to where it should turn on, like about there. Boom. And I make a lot of sound effects though, just so you guys know. Boom, boom. Alright, boom, right there. So I'm gonna put a guide right there, and the way we're gonna do that is just make sure that your layer is selected and then hit the start button, and it'll simply just select the guide there for you. It'll leave it right there for you. It'll, you know, just let us know that that's where we want our hologram to turn on. Cool. Alright, and then let's go ahead and let's go forward. He's looking at the hologram. He's all impressed. Okay, he makes contact with the hologram, I guess, like right here. So let's put another guide right there. Then I'm gonna put another guide about here. The reason is because this little space right here, that's where that graphic is being displayed, and then he makes contact right here, and then that graphic slides off the screen, right? Boom. That means that by this time this graphic should no longer be displayed in our hologram. Then he makes contact again about here. So we're gonna put another guide right there, and then I think he slides he slides off again. Now they don't have to be precise. These are just guides, just letting us know this is where the character is making contact with the hologram. So let's continue forward. Let's see. I'm gonna hit the space button real quick so it could re-render some of this stuff out. You know, another reason why we want to keep it at half, so it actually runs a little bit quicker. If this was to be at full, it'd probably still be around here trying to render each frame. You know. Okay. Alright, so it makes contact. He makes contact with the hologram about here. I'm gonna put like right there. Another guide right there, and then graphic slides off about there, and then another contact again right there, and then graphic slides off again about there, and then puts his hand down, thank God, and then he comes back, and then he makes contact with the hologram about there. So I'm gonna put another guide there, and then he looks like he increases the object about there. And does he make more contact? I don't think he does. Yep, that's about it. He was about to go turn off the hologram right there, but I kind of just cut the clip right there so we can move a little bit quicker. So just by looking at the guides here, we can see that guide turns on here, he makes contact, slides off, contact, slides off. And then he makes contact again here, slides off the graphic, contact again, slides off the graphic, and then finally right here he scales an object up. And boom, and that's it. You see, those are the guides. That's what they're there for, and they're going to be very, very helpful as we move forward in our tutorial. Okay, and here, if you guys want to take a second look as to what we should be accomplishing, is those guides here. This is what they do. You see, and then that's what we're going to be animating. And then again another one, and then another one, and then I guess this is the one that he scales up. You see, so that's what we want to do. Perfect. Alright, so the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create a light. Okay, so again we can right click in this area here and select new and then light, or we can simply go to layer up here, go to new and select light. And name's really not that important, just make sure that it's a spotlight. All the settings right now are not all that important. Everything looks good right now, so I'm just gonna hit OK. We got our light, that's perfect. Now with the light highlighted, I'm sorry, go ahead and hit P so we can bring down the position information. And while we're at it, go ahead and select the tracking data and also hit P so we can bring down the position information. Now our goal here is we want this layer to be parented to this tracking data layer and to its position. Okay, and the way we're gonna do this is, you see this little clock right here that we see, this little time watch? Go ahead, we're gonna click on this, but just before we click, go ahead and select Alt, hold, and then click this time watch. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna bring out the expression position, and then we have these four little graphics right here. And the one that we want to concentrate on is this little squiggly one. I call it a little squiggly one. In reality, it's expression pick whip. In other words, is we want to drag this little graphics guy, and you know, it'll create this little line, and simply drag it over to the position of the tracking data. And what we're gonna do here, once we do this, the position on the light, it's now similar to the position of the tracking data. And anything that we do here, any changes to the position that we do here, is gonna affect the position of this light layer here, because this one is now following this one. Make sense? Cool. Now let's go ahead and we're gonna collapse them. We don't need this anymore. It has been already parented. Okay, so now that we have parented the light's layer position to our tracking data position, when you move around in your footage, now you should see that your light, it's now keeping up with our cell phone there. You see, so everywhere our cell phone goes, so will our light. Cool, perfect. Now let's go ahead and highlight the light layer, and you see that the light, it's pretty big like that. That's because it's actually pointing towards the character's position. We want it to be pointed straight up. So in order for us to do that, just get its center point and just pretty much just tell it to point straight up. You might have to zoom out a little bit and just have it point straight up, and just adjust it as such. And now it's pointing just straight up, just like that. Now don't worry how far it actually goes up to right now. The only thing we want it to do right now is that this light needs to know that its only job is to point up. That's all it has to do. Now when you move in, you know, within your footage, you can see that now that the light, it's actually just pointing up, and it's actually keeping up with our cell phone. And that's what we were looking for. So it actually looks pretty good, and it's actually, the tracking data is actually pretty good as well, since the light's actually keeping up with the phone quite smoothly. So it actually looks pretty good. Cool. All right, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and let's move forward. Next thing what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create a new solid, and we're gonna name this Optical Flare. We just want to make sure that it is comp size. Color's not all that important right now, so we're just gonna hit OK. Cool. And then with this layer selected, with the new solid that we just created, let's go ahead and select Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares. You can simply find that same effect over in the Effects and Presets window. Cool. Now we're gonna go ahead and change the render mode here to on transparent. Then we're gonna hit the option box here, so we can bring up all the information of optical flares. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to motion graphics, which is this folder right here, and then I used blue artifact. Okay, now blue artifact has a lot of the things that I don't want it to have, so I'm just gonna get rid of a lot of the elements like the iris, and then there's a multi-iris in there effect that I don't want it to have. Then there's a ring effect there that I don't want it to have either, so I'm just gonna pretty much delete a lot of this stuff. and I just want to end up with like a shimmer or something like that. Like this, and then this is what I'm looking for right here. This is the effect that I need to actually make my light look like a hologram, which is what I'm looking for, right? Alright, and then as you can see, I only ended up with the shimmer right here. So and just go ahead and center it up right here in the display menu, display window, I'm sorry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and increase its brightness to about like let's say about 300 or so. That looks about right. And then I'm going to go ahead and increase its scale to about, let's say 70%. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay. Cool. Now always make sure that you have this selected. I mean, you know, sometimes it'll jump on you. So just make sure that this is selected so we can bring out this information over here. Now the next thing we want to take a look at is going to be the circular completion. And the circular completion, it's right here. Now the circular completion is 360 degrees. We want to make sure that we can we minimize that, the circular completion, to about 60 or about 70 or so, or something like that. Whatever looks best coming out of a hologram. I think 100 is going to be pretty good. Yeah, let's do 100 or something like that. Yeah, well, I mean, we're still going to be messing around with it. And then we want to go ahead and change the rotation to about possibly 180 or something like that. 170. Yeah, 180 looks good. Yeah, exactly 180. That's good. And then you want to feather it out a little bit as well. Right now the edges are really sharp, and usually when it comes to a hologram, I'm assuming that those edges wouldn't be as sharp, so this feathering is going to take care of most of that. So you see, kind of feathers it out. Now because when we feather it out, it's now messing around with the completion. Now we're going to have to decrease the completion a little bit, and it's actually starting to look pretty good. I mean, I think I feathered it a little bit too much. That looks good. I think that looks good right there. Alright. Perfect. Then we're going to hit OK. So we can bring it into our display now. Cool. Now, as you can see, it's actually quite hard. It's not that to see. It's not that visible. You can always go back into the options and change it up a little bit, because even though you have it displayed in this window here, it can actually still look a lot different when you have it in your display window in your actual composition. So as you can see right here, we can see that it's actually flat out like that, and that's not what I'm looking for. And it doesn't look that much like that here. You see, so we would have to play around with it a little bit more. And looks like the circular completion is a little bit too off. So let's go ahead and shrink that down a little bit more. And maybe feathered it even just a bit less. Hit OK there, and that looks better. I mean it's starting to look a lot better. I think I want it a little bit more wider, so let me go back in there. I'm sorry if you're actually following along. I know you're going back and forth, and you know, but what are you gonna do? All right, that looks better. We're going back to where we're at. Welcome to visual effects. Alright, how about that? Yeah, that looks better. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, next we want to change the mode to add. So if you're in this window right here, again, just toggle back and forth with this button and just change the mode to add, so we can make some of that light pop out and make it a little bit more visible. It's going to look a lot better. Alright, so once we have changed the mode to add, now again, if you're lost, change the windows over here. The reason why I always emphasize this is because a lot of people do get lost, or some people don't know how to get, from point A to Z on this one right here. All it is just this button. Okay, so we changed the mode to add, and the reason why we did that is because it brings out more of the light effect on our composition. Okay, so the next thing is we want to change the color. Since it's completely white, we want to change it to some type of blue color. I think that looks pretty good. I like that blue color. And then we want to change the positioning mode. Obviously the position right there is not where it should be, so let's go ahead and put it to track lights. Now when you put a track lights, obviously it changed its position, and now it's tracking to this light that we have placed right there. But you see it's not right on the light, so you simply, all you have to do is just position it onto the light, and all it's going to do is just track to the tracking data that we have already put on that track, on that light, on that null object, I guess. Since the null object right, tracking data is right here, this light, which is this little wireframe here, it's not tracking and parented to the position of this data. And since an optical flares in the effects controls window, we changed it to track light. Now this is tracking to this light that's on the only light that is existing here, which this light is now tracking to the tracking data that is existing there since we parented it before, which is thus in the end result, boom, now it's just tracking to that light source right there, and that's all that it's doing. So let me go ahead and pre-render it real quick just to see that we're actually right on track with it, and it should look just fine. It looks pretty good to me. Let's see, if you can always reposition it if you want, it's up to you. I like the fact that my light would actually touch the phone a little bit, so I'm gonna lower the light just a little bit. You can zoom in, and because you see how our actual light layer is not actually touching the phone, that means that that light's not going to touch the phone if you placed it right on that wireframe. So you see now the light is actually keeping up with the phone. It's making contact with the phone. In fact, the light of the phone, it is not even coming from there, it's coming from here somewhere. So we can fix that too. I mean, it just depends on whatever you want to do or how detailed you want to get with it. But from what I can see, the light source of the iPhone, the little light thing that comes with it, it's actually coming out from here. Cool. So you can place it right there and it'll just track just as it was tracking before. Same thing, you see. It kind of does deviate a little bit right here, but I'm not too worried because since those guides right here, that means that right here, this is telling me that the light's going to be off right there. And then it's going to turn on right here, boom. You see, and it's actually keeping up with the light right there. So that looks a lot more natural, it looks better. And we can definitely play with it a little bit more as we go further. Cool, but it's actually doing quite a good job. So I like the way we're going with our outcome. Again, I like to press the space bar and pre-render some of it out. Keeping it at half is gonna knock out most of it quite quickly, so we can have more of an idea of the direction in which we're going. But it looks like everything's actually working out pretty well. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and let's move forward. Next thing is the light. It's kind of quite sharp. It doesn't look natural. It doesn't look like it's a part of the scene or anything like that, because if you notice, the environment's quite blurred because of the focus of the camera. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to highlight this, make sure that it's highlighted, go to our effects and presets and hit fast blur. Type in fast blur, I'm sorry. Once you hit fast blur, these are one of the presets for blur and sharpen. You can simply go and put it into an effect, into that same layer, drag it into the layer, or drop it onto the scene. Do whatever you want to do. I'm just simply going to put it right here on top of this layer, and it should pop up right here. And the blurriness, I'm going to crank it up to possibly, I think, about 4. And it'll blur out the light just a slight bit. Might not make too much of a difference, but now the light looks a little bit more blurred. It doesn't look too sharp as it was before, and definitely looks a lot better now. So it looks good. Alright, so it's starting to look quite well now. Now what we want to do next is we want to go ahead and animate where the hologram turns on, so we can start actually stepping into the right direction when it comes to its animation. So our guide here is telling us that our hologram should turn on about here. Cool. So what we're going to do next is with our optical flare layer highlighted, let's go ahead and select the and let's go ahead and move forward to the first frame. Let's go ahead and hit this time watch here for brightness, and then go ahead and hit U to collapse the brightness time frame that we just created for our optical flares solid. Okay, So this is where we're at, and it's at a 100 at this first frame where we're at right now. And I think we want to turn it off right there because it shouldn't be on in reality at the beginning of the footage. And then let's go ahead and let's go forward to where it should turn on. And that's going to be about there. And we're going to switch that over, hit another time frame, and we're going to switch it over to about 100. 100. There you go. So when you play this little footage right here, this little part right there, it should turn on, right? Boom, right? But it seems like it's a really smooth transition when it turns on, boom, and then it starts to come on. It doesn't look natural. I personally don't like the way it looks. So I think that it still needs to be off about here. So I'm going to hit another time frame right there and decrease that all the way down to 0. So from here to here, all these points right here, the hologram's completely off. And then finally it turns on about here. Now, I have never owned a hologram in my life, and if you have, you know, you're very, very lucky. Most likely you probably are wealthy, I don't know. But anyways, I'm assuming, and for the sake of visual effects, when a hologram turns on, it might need a little bit more extra power than the normal gadget, right? So I want to give it an effect that when it turns on, the batteries had to give up a lot of power to turn that sucker on. So in order for us to do that is I'm gonna go back here where it should be turning on, I'm sorry, and I'm gonna go beyond 100. Probably put it like at 300. Let's say 300 or something like that, right? And then I'm gonna go back a frame, couple of frames, and I'm gonna also increase it right there. And you don't have to hit keyframe every single time. If you're already in here, it'll just create a keyframe for you. Go back to the original one and then go another two. Nah, you know what? Make it one frame, and then make it even brighter. And then in a few frames or so, go back down to like I want to say about 80. Yeah, about 80 sounds good. And by the way, I'm never gonna have it at 100. I don't think that the brightness should even be at 100 just for the natural look of it. I'm only gonna keep it like at about 80 at max. The only reason why I went up is just to give it that effect that it actually turned on. So let's go ahead and take a look, see how that looks. And boom, you see that looks a lot better. So when it turns on, it gives it that look that it actually needed a lot of power to turn on, boom, and it gives it that like that spark effect when it turns on. And it's actually an explosive turn on, which is really good. It looks more natural. I like the way it looks. It just boom, turns on back to, you know, its regular brightness, which is down to about 80, and I'm gonna keep it at 80. So that looks really good. And later on, if you want, you can even animate this even further and have it do like more sparks, you know, along your footage, like it'll spark up, you know, or blur out a little bit more along as we go. But that just depends on you. But you don't have to do that right now. It's completely on you right now. But that start right there looks pretty natural. I like it, and that's good. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have done that, next thing is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna duplicate this layer. And the way I'm going to do that is you make sure that it's highlighted first, of course, and then you want to hit Control D or hit Edit, Duplicate. It's duplicate, I'm sorry. Alright. So now that we have duplicated, I'm losing my tongue here. On the duplicated one, you know, now we have two different layers. When you duplicated it and you go about here, you're gonna see that the brightness is actually a little bit higher than normal. That's because we have two different layers right here now. Okay, but that's okay, you know. And we're gonna mess with that. So on the duplicated one, on the new one, go ahead and hit and go to Animation Evolution here real quick, and then hit Alt click. When you do that, again, you bring up the expression. Animation Evolution, the same thing that we did before. It's, you know, now we're gonna do it to this one. However, before, you know, we're not gonna parent it, I'm sorry, it's just we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna enter an expression. Okay, and that expression is time times 50. And that's it. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Microsoft Excel, it'll make a little bit more sense what times 50 is. It's just a simple formula letting it know that the animation over time it needs to multiply by 50, which means that throughout the time that we have this hologram on, now we're going to have such a slight effect to that light that it's going to have some type of movement. So when you see the light, it's going to move a little bit. So now it has some type of small animation. It's no longer just a still light. It's not just a light that is just just reflecting and that's it. It's not, it's moving now. It's a light that's moving. It gives it more of a natural look, and that's what we were looking for. So it really doesn't matter if it makes the light brighter because we have two different layers there. The main thing that we want to focus on is the fact that the light is animated. It's actually moving throughout the entire footage. Cool. Alright, perfect. Alright, now I'm actually quite happy with the way things are turning out. It looks pretty good now. I like the way it turns on, the way it's actually animating. It's actually starting to become a little bit more and more natural. And what I just noticed, actually, it's pretty cool. When I shot this, I flipped over my iPhone and turned on the light on purpose in the little iPhone that comes with it. And that light reflected my fingers here. And actually it makes it look a little bit more natural. That's pretty cool. So just have that in mind. Those are the little things that go a really long way when it comes to visual effects. So just have that in mind. Cool. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a new composition. New comp. And I'm going to name this hologram screen. Okay. Hologram screen. Now it's going to be a 640 pixel by 360 pixel. Okay, it's going to be 23.976 frames per second. Now, After Effects requires that to be really specific. It'll give you better results if you become really specific with your frame rates. You can go anywhere from 23.976 to 24, 25, 30, whatever you want to do. But the reason why I'm doing 23.976 is because that is the standard rate for 1080, 1920 by 1080, and then and it's also the frame rate at which I shot this picture at, and that is also the frame rate that I'm doing the irregular composition. So let's go ahead and hit OK. Now, just so you guys understand and how to do this, whenever you guys are about to mix up two different compositions, you guys always want to make sure that each composition that you guys bring together into one footage have the same exact frame rate. If one composition has a frame rate of 24 and the other one has a frame rate of 23.976, or another one has a frame rate of 30 frames per second, it's going to look choppy. It's not going to look all that well as it should. Okay, so just make sure that all the compositions that you're putting together have the same frame rate for the best quality. And it makes it a little bit easier on the system. Now, in order for you to take a look at how or where you're at as far as your composition settings, just simply go to a composition and hit composition settings, or simply hit Control K, and it'll tell you, and it'll bring up the settings. You can even change the composition name if you want. It'll tell you the resolution that you're playing with here, and it'll tell you right here frame rate 23.976, and that's it. You see, and that's how. And just before you create a different composition, just the way we did with this one, same thing. When you set it up, make sure that the frames are at the same rate. Okay, we can put this one at 100. It was at 50, but because it's so small, we're gonna put it at 100. And this one you can put it at full resolution. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do the hologram screen. This is where we're gonna animate, create, and do all the entire hologram screen that's gonna go on top of right here. And because obviously it's not as big as this screen, it's only going to be really small. That's the reason why we did it at 640. Okay, now in this new composition, let's go ahead and let's create a new solid. Alright, and then the solid, let's just make it comp size, it has to be white. And then let's go to our effects and presets window and let's type in grid. and right under generate, select grid and drag it over to the screen. Again, you could just drop it in here or put it in here. It just depends however you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and just drop it onto the screen. Okay. And then I want to change the size from. So you see this selection here, size from. Let's go ahead and change that to width slider. Cool. And then when you go down to border, I'm going to change that to about a 1. Cool. You see? Now let's go ahead and let's duplicate that white solid again. You can simply select, highlight it and select Control D, or you can simply just go to edit, duplicate. Okay, so in this case I already duplicated mine, and then in that duplicated one we're gonna change some of the settings. So in the width, in the effect controls window, I'm sorry, we're gonna change that to about a 16. Cool. And then we're gonna change the border size to about a 0.5. And now you see that the effect here, what we're trying to do is that we created some borders, which is the primary solid, and then we duplicated the solid, and then we created even smaller frames here. Like, just gives it that look like it's a hologram, and then, you know, there's I guess a backdrop to it, like you know, something where we have to touch. You know, it's like a border or something, whatever you want to call it. But that you know, that's gonna come up on the hologram screen. Okay, cool. Now let's go ahead and let's create a new solid. And it can be comp size, that's fine. It really doesn't matter the color that it is. Let's go ahead and let's create a mask. Just make sure that you have your rectangular tool here selected, so that you can be in star or whatever, but just make sure that it's in rectangular tool, and just double click on it. When you double click on it, it'll create a mask outlining the entire solid. So and that's pretty good right there where it's at. Okay, and let's go ahead and change that mask to subtract. Cool. And then I want to go ahead and expand the options of that mask. And then I want to decrease the mask expansion to about -3. Cool. That means that, you know, the expansion is now smaller than it actually should be. So it's pretty good. I mean, it's starting to look quite well actually. Cool. Now next is I'm gonna go ahead and create a new adjustment layer. Same thing, right click, new adjustment layer, or edit, layer, and then adjustment layer. So the adjustment layer will be now here created. Cool. Now let's go ahead and here we're gonna go ahead and add a tint to this adjustment layer, and the way you're gonna do that is let's go to effects and presets and go to tint. Or you can simply go to effect, color correction, and then go to tint. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just put it here right on top of ours, on the adjustment layer, and I'm going to change the matte white to color. And I'm going to do that like a slight blue as well. And now we have like a blue, you know, screen going on here. And then I want to change the amount of tint. I want to make it less. I mean, let's go ahead and let's put it like at 85 or so. And that looks better. Yeah, I mean, 85 or so. I mean, I don't want it to be too tinty, like exactly at blue. I just want to decrease it just a touch. Cool. Perfect. All right, perfect. Now let's go to our primary composition, and then let's go to our project window. And now if you notice, we now have a new composition here called hologram screen, which is pretty much this one, the one that we just created. So let's go ahead and let's grab this hologram screen composition and let's drag it on top of the rest of our footage that we have here in our original composition. Okay, now just have in mind that any changes that you make during this composition will change in our original composition only to affect the composition that we have dragged in. So if I change anything here or the color or anything like that, so will this screen change in our original composition. Okay, so just have that in mind. Now let's go ahead and let's hit S, and we're gonna scale this composition to the size that we are looking for. Okay, so in this case I'm gonna scale mine down to about that size. Looks pretty good. I don't want to, make it too high up either, but you just want to make it look natural. You don't want to make it look too big either. And like, that looks pretty good right there. Yeah, and then just know that yours can be a little bit different. It doesn't have to be exactly at 91 or something. It just depends on the angle of your camera, your shot, or if you're using a different footage. Of course, it'll be different. Okay. Now let's go ahead and change our mode, and we're gonna set it to screen. Cool. So now it blends in with our footage. And then let's go ahead and switch to the other window. Since we're here, let's go ahead and switch to the other window. And we're going to make this a 3D object. Cool. Then go ahead and select AA. While you have this layer highlighted, select AA. So you'll bring up more options of this layer. And then we're going to go ahead and turn off accept shadows and accept lights. Obviously, the only light that's coming in right now, well, obviously is the natural light from the window, of course, behind the camera. But then more light is going to be casted from the fact that we have this hologram now turned on right in front of the character. We don't want it to accept any shadows, and we don't want it to accept any lights, unless if you wanted to, or if you have some type of design idea for a new hologram or whatever it is that you want to do. But for now, we're going to turn those off in my case. Okay, cool. Alright, so next is we're gonna go ahead and place this as it should, or try to track it to the tracking data. So what we're gonna do is, while you have this layer highlighted, select P, and then go ahead and select the tracking data, and also hit P as well, so we can bring down the position on both of these layers. Now we're gonna pretty much parent this layer to the tracking data, and the same thing that we did with the light layer, we're gonna go ahead and hit Alt, hold, and then select that time watch, so we can bring down the expression position information. Now we're gonna go ahead and get our expression pick whip, or the little squiggly thing as I called it, and we're gonna go ahead and drag it over to the positions, to the tracking data's position, and we're gonna parent it to that position. Again, that means that whatever changes we make here, changes are gonna be affected here. That means that this hologram screen is not tracking to this position. Okay, so now that means that whenever you collapse all that stuff, whenever you play this, now your hologram screen now is tracking to that tracking data. Cool. Now let's not freak out, because I know that it's actually tagging from its center position, and After Effects, really all we have told it to do is, hey man, can you position this hologram screen to this tracking data, please? Thanks. But we never told it from where, from which point of this composition. Remember, this is only a composition. So the way we're going to fix that is go ahead and select and highlight this hologram screen layer and hit A to bring up the anchor point. Okay, the anchor point is this little center position here. We're gonna mess with this anchor point until we are satisfied with the position of this hologram screen. So that means that wherever we moved it from that point, it's gonna track. So let's go ahead and increase the anchor point. I think mine was about 500 or so, or something like that. Let's go to about 500. Yep. And now it's going to be on top of the phone. So now that we move around, you see now the screen is doing the same exact thing. The only thing we did is we just changed the anchor point. Now it's not tracking towards, to the top, of course, right? I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I mean. And then you could also change the different other values, like the X, Y, and Z values, just to center up a little bit more if you want. I mean, obviously my screen, according to my original one, is not exactly centered to this thing over here. It's actually towards the side. So we can actually move it over a little bit more if you want, to the left or to the right, and just adjust it accordingly. And I think I'm gonna decrease my X position just a little bit so it looks like it's right in front of the character, and it's gonna go around there. I think that looks pretty good. Cool. You see, now it looks like it has more of a perspective. It's still lined out to the lens of the camera, of course, and we're gonna fix that pretty soon. But at least now it's starting to look like it's you know, a little bit more of a natural look. Now, according to the actor's eyes, he's asleep right now. He's looking somewhere around here. That means that we want to increase the scale of our screen. So to do that, again, just highlight it, hit S, and then just increase the scale if you need to a little bit more. And then again, you're gonna have to mess around with it and all that stuff, but I think that looks good. I mean, I'm not gonna go any further, but right here, right now is the time to actually fix it up or do whatever you want to do as far as positioning, just so it looks a little bit more natural. And I'm satisfied with mine. So as soon as you're satisfied with yours, you should be okay. Alright, now that we have our hologram positioned properly, next step would be to add an effect to it. So let's go ahead and highlight the hologram screen, and let's go to our effects and presets window. And here you're gonna type in optics compensation, and then you have this little distort effect, and let's go ahead and drag it over to our composition. Now be very careful, because a lot of people they think they could just go and drag it over and boom, that's it. No, drag it over to this composition. Remember, we're working with two different compositions now. This is no longer a layer, a solid, an adjustment layer, nothing like that. It is a composition. Okay, so just make sure that it drops on top of your hologram screen, not the entire screen itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop it on top of our hologram screen. And I'm going to change the FOV orientation. I'm sorry, not the orientation, I'm mistaken. The field of view. I'm going to change it to about a 40. And as you can see, it'll pretty much just round it up a little bit more. You know, give it more of a natural look as what it should look like in real life. So, and I'm actually happy with that. You could actually round it up a little bit more if you want, or you know, go further if you really feel like it should. But I'm just gonna keep it at 40 just for the sake of the tutorial. Cool, perfect. Alright, I like the direction in which we're heading as far as the tutorial. Everything looks pretty well. At this point, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the spacebar, and I'm gonna let After Effects pre-render some of my footage, because the next part is we want to go ahead and at this point you want to make sure that everything is as accordingly, like is the actor where he's looking at, is he looking at the hologram itself, or is he looking somewhere outside of the hologram screen? You want to make sure that those are aligned. Also, you want to make sure that whenever he brings his finger up, he's actually touching or trying to touch somewhere where the hologram screen should be, right? You don't want to run into a little issue later down the road where his finger is going to come down to a point where he's not touching the hologram screen, and then you know you're going to run into further issues from there. So let's just go ahead and fix those from here. I don't think we may have any issues right now, but let's just double check. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to look at our guides. Our guides here tells us right here, this is where the hologram turns on, right? Boom, turns on right there. Then we go, he touches right there, his finger's right on the screen. So that is perfect, it's right on the screen, cool. Then again right here, and it's right on the screen as well, perfect. Then one more touch right here. We just want to make sure that, hold on, you see, this is why we want to pre-render everything real quick. And you know, we could definitely go all the way down to a third, but I usually don't go down that far. So anyways, he touches right there, looks like he's touching right on the screen, and then he maximizes whatever he wants to maximize, and that looks pretty good. Yep, so everything's according. You don't want to, overdo it or anything like that. And we will fix most of the things that are right here. I know that this composition we only did it about 12 seconds long, which is why it's cutting down short here, but we'll fix that. It's just make sure that everything is according, that his eyes are looking at the screen itself, and that his eyes are not deviating somewhere outside of the screen, because people will pick up on that. Cool. Alright, so now the next step is we're gonna go ahead and animate our screen itself. It's just the same thing that we did with the light, where you want to go ahead and animate the screen. Now if you notice, the screen is still on at the beginning of the footage, which it shouldn't be, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get that fixed as well. At this point right now, the screen is still perpendicular to the angle of the camera. It's not, it needs to be perpendicular to the actor's eyes, and not to the camera itself. And we have to fix that as well. Okay, so the way we're gonna go about this is, let's go ahead and hit the hologram screen and hit R to collapse the orientation information, and then let's go ahead and adjust this accordingly. Now I believe that it is in the Y rotation that we're gonna make this look a little bit more of an angle type thing. So let's go ahead and mess with the Y rotation, and it's gonna look a little bit pixelated, but looks like that one right there is gonna be good for me, right? And then yep, there you go. You see, so it's kind of now at an angle now. It looks more natural. It looks like it's more towards his point of view as opposed to being to the camera's point of view. So that looks pretty good. So I like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do some animation. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm done with the Y rotation. I don't want it to change. The Y rotation is at -22, and that's where it's going to be. I don't want it to change. What I do want to change though, however, it's gonna be the X rotation. And the X rotation is when this thing turns on, it kind of flaps right over. Now this, you can do this effect if you want. It completely depends on you if you want to do it. But what mine is gonna do is usually laying down like that, and then as it turns on, it's gonna come out, and then it's gonna boom go up like that, just like how we did it in our original footage. And let's just, just to see an example, let's go ahead and take a look at it one more time. Boom, you see, and it'll just come right up. Again, it depends on you guys, what you guys want to do. Again, it doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but just for the sake of the tutorial, that's just what I need to do, right? So let's go ahead and let's take care of that. So at the beginning, I'm gonna go ahead and put a time frame right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna lay it down to about -50, I think. Let's go -60. Okay, cool. And then it should be flat straight up to the point where it turns on, and then he's looking at the screen now, like let's say somewhere around here. I'm gonna hit another frame rate, and let's put it back at 0. Cool. So now that we play this little spot right there, I'm just gonna hit the space bar right there so it can pre-render real quick. I like pre-rendering because it gives me more of a look at how things are actually looking, nothing too choppy. It's kind of, I don't like working with choppy things. So alright, cool. So let's take a look. Boom, there you go, and we have our animated screen. Of course, now we also want to fix the opacity. So by doing so, we want to collapse this and just simply hit T to bring up the opacity, and we're going to animate the opacity on the screen as well. So obviously it'd be 0 at the beginning. So I'm going to hit the time watch here, hit a time frame, and I'm going to put the opacity down to 0. There's no visibility of the screen at all whatsoever. The visibility is probably going to end up coming up somewhere around there. So I don't want it to be on around here just yet. So I'm going to hit another time frame here and keep it at 0. And then let's move forward up to about where there's a lot of light. I'm going to hit another time frame right here, and I'm going to probably put it like at about let's say 40. And then let's go about here where it's about to finish up, and I'm gonna hit it. And I'm gonna put it around. Let's put it around 73. That's fine, and that's it. Again, I'm not gonna leave it at 100% opacity because it won't have that natural look. If you keep it like at about 70 or 80ish or so, or something like that, it's gonna look a lot better. In fact, you know what? I'll kick it up to about 85, just so we can see it a little bit more. And that's good. So now that we pre-render that, hit space and let it run on its own, we can see that now we had that animated, boom, and it looks marvelous. That looks really good, and I'm happy with it. Cool. That's the same thing that we have in our original footage here. Now on this one, believe it or not, on this one I actually had the opacity like as low as 70, and it still looks really good. On this one I'm gonna put it like at about 85, just so we, just for the sake of the tutorial, we can actually see that it's actually coming out quite well. Alright, so everything's coming out as it should. So the next step would be now is we want to animate what's going to be on the screen. Okay, so next thing what we're gonna do is we want to do these effects right here, and as we go along, we want to animate it so it moves along with our finger or our touch and all that stuff, rotation and things like that. If we notice, it'll rotate a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and finalize our animation by scaling that part up. So let's go ahead and let's get going. So first things first is we want to go ahead and lock this composition window. So the way we're going to do that is, let's go ahead and see when this upper left hand corner there's this lock little icon. Go ahead and click on that, and it'll lock this view. And then let's go ahead and go to view up here, and then we're going to go ahead and actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't highlighted because I didn't have this box here highlighted. So just make sure that this box here is highlighted. Then go to view, hit new viewer, or you can simply hit Control Alt Shift and then N, which I think that just going to view new viewer is a little bit easier. And then another window should pop up. Okay, and then this one's not locked. This one is, but this one's not locked. So let's go ahead and switch over to our hologram screen composition. And this is our hologram screen composition that we created earlier. And let's go ahead and let's put this at 100% visibility, because we can actually fit the whole entire thing into just this second window right here. Okay, and then this is where we are going to start animating our hologram screen. Alright, so first things first is we have our guide layer here, but that doesn't work for us, right? Because we want it to be in our hologram layers. So what we're going to do is let's just go ahead and highlight it, and we're going to go hit edit, copy, and then let's go to our hologram screen, and then let's go ahead and hit edit, paste. So now we have our null object. Well, here it kind of renamed it null. I'm going to go ahead and rename it again. It's going to be guide. Well, there it is. Perfect. And now we have our guides here. And our guides are very important to be here because now we can see where the actor makes contact. You see, and this is how the guides become very, very helpful. Cool? Alright. So the first things first is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get one of our circular drawings. And again, you can create some of these in Photoshop and create whatever you want, and we'll go ahead and put it into the into your hologram screen. It just depends whatever you want to do. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it under the adjustment and the white to solid layer, because whatever I did here, all the adjustments here and this solid, I want it to affect the actual graphics itself. Okay, and let me go ahead and move this guy down here. That's fine. Cool. Okay, now obviously it's black, so I want to go ahead and change that, and I'm gonna go to effects, And then I'm gonna go to which distort, no, channel. I'm sorry, channel invert. And now it's, well, it should have been white, but because we placed it under the adjustment layer and the white solid, it's actually going to reflect the color of the hologram screen, which is really good. Now let's go ahead and hit S for the scale information, and let's go ahead and scale that down. And as you can see, it'll also display here on the hologram screen in the original footage as well. Okay, cool. So I'm going to leave it at that size. It looks pretty good. I like the way it's, you know, it's coming out. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the first frame, and then I'm going to hit R so I can bring up the rotation information. So, and I'm going to animate the rotation. So I'm going to simply create a keyframe right here, and then I'm going to go all the way to the end. I think in the original we kind of had slid that off screen. Yep, we slid it off screen. So that was the first one that was the first graphic that got slid off. So I'm gonna probably animate it to about here. So I'm gonna hit that right there, and then I'm gonna rotate it. I'm gonna like quite a few. I mean, you could play with it. It depends on what you want to do. But mine looks like it's actually gonna go quite far. Yeah, mine did like one full rotation. I think like 1.5 or something like that. When it got to here, it did 1 times at 1/4. So it started like at 0, and then it rotated 1 time, and then it stopped back at 114 degrees up to here. Plus, it's not like we're even gonna see this portion right here, because this graphics is eventually gonna slide off from here to here once the character slides it off the screen. Okay, so the rotation is done. So the next thing we want to do is I want to hit P to bring up the position. So the position of this thing looks real well. So I'm going to hit a keyframe at the beginning, and then I'm going to hit another keyframe like about here. This is where he makes contact. Actually, in fact, I'm sorry, we don't even need this keyframe right here. I'm sorry. We'll make one right here, and then I believe that he slides it off like about here. So we're gonna set a keyframe right where we put a guide, and then where we're at right there, let's zoom out right here, and then just drag that right over, just right off the screen. Doesn't have to be too far, but just around there looks pretty good. So that means that from that point right here, it'll just slide right off. And that's it. Now the reason why I didn't continuously animate more of the rotation past this point is because there's no reason to. And then plus, when you render this thing out, behind the scenes, I guess is what I like to call it, After Effects will still think that it needs to animate most of this stuff out, even though it's not even being displayed in our footage anymore. So it'll take up more power, you know, more time out of our rendering if you continue to animate this thing, because why are you going to do it if it's not even in the shot anymore? In fact, we could even cut this animation up to about there, and we could minimize it up to about there, because it doesn't have to go anywhere anymore. That's all its existence right there. Boom. And then once the system's rendering over here, it doesn't have to worry about this anymore. Now it's worrying about all this stuff over here. Makes it easier on the system. Those are just tips and things that you should think about when you're doing this stuff. But if you're first timer, don't worry too much about it. But just so you have it in mind, and in the case that you want to make your rendering process a little quicker, you can do that. Okay, so I'm happy where we're at right now so far. And the guy, the character slides off right there, and boom, cool. Now he makes another contact about here. Oh, I'm sorry, around here, right? And then he slides another object off the screen right there. So what that object is going to be, another another graphics, right? So I have this element graphic right here. So what I'm gonna do is he slides another graphics right here, and then he slides another one over here, and then slides even another one over here, and then he slides on the actually he increases the scale on another one over here. Okay, so that means we need 1, 2, 3, 4 different graphics right here, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this one that I have right here, and instead of just continuously putting different ones in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag it over into a new composition. Okay, and this is one right here. So, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the ellipse tool, and I'm gonna zoom in quite well, and I'm gonna create a mask here. Hit Control Shift to create a perfect circle, and let's say I want to go as far as right there, and that's one composition right there. And I can click out of it, and now if you notice, we'll have on one oops, sorry, where is it? Oh, it's right here. You see, that's one composition right there that you just created. Real simple. All you have to do is just cut it up. Then I'm going to go ahead and get that same PNG file, create another composition. We already have one. We need 4 total. I just want to make sure that I have the ellipse tool selected. I'm going to go from the center. Again, select Control Shift and go about bigger this time. Let's get the biggest circle right here. Let's go about there. And then I'm gonna get another mask. Oops. Get another one, and I'm gonna go from the center, and again Control Shift to make a perfect circle, and I'm gonna go to about there. And then in the mask 2, I'm gonna hit subtract, and then now we have just that. And then you can click out of it. Now we have another one right here. So this is our PNG file. This is one element right there, a composition, which is just the outside, and then we have another one here. This is just the inside. So we already have 2 total. So I'm going to get the same one, I'm going to drag it into a composition again, and pretty much just repeat this twice, but I'm going to try to get different things out of this drawing. So again, the ellipse tool, I'm going to go from the center, Control Shift to create a perfect circle. And let's, on this one, let's go about there. That looks good. That's it. And then click out of it. That creates another one right here. So now we have 3 so far. No, not that one. This one, and that one. Cool. And then we need to make one last one. You know what? That last one. Let me see. 2, 3. We got 3, 4, and then we got that. Yeah, that's good. We have 4 total already. I'm gonna make that last one the whole thing, so that's fine. Okay, cool. So let's get back to our animation here. So he makes contact with the hologram again about here, around there, right? So let's go ahead and get whichever one you want. I would suggest, from what I did in the original footage, I did something like, I had something around this one, like that bigger one right there. So, you know, let's go ahead, and for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it right on top of that last one that I did. Remember, you want to make sure that you place it under the adjustment and the white to solid layer. So anything that's affected here will affect the graphics right here. So you already know that it has the color correction and all that good stuff. Now, it does seem a little bit darker, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an effect to it, color correction, curves, and I'm going to light that sucker up. You see, something like that, so it can really stand up. That looks good. Cool. Alright. So first things first, I want to go ahead and animate the rotation. Well, you know what? Let's mess with the scale real quick, just so we see what we're working with. So let's hit S and increase the scale on it. So let's go over here and let's increase the scale on it. I'm sorry. That looks good around there. That looks real good right there. Cool. Now let's go to the beginning of our animation here, and let's hit rotation, R for rotation. Set a keyframe right there, and then that guy gets slid off like around here, like around there. So I'm gonna animate it to about here. Actually, yeah. And let's hit another keyframe right there, and I'm gonna rotate. Instead of going clockwise, I'm gonna go counterclockwise this time, and I'm gonna rotate it, you know, a time and a half as well. You know, this one could be slower too. I think it'll look a lot better if it goes a little bit slower than the other one. But there it is. So this guy comes in, the other one's rotating clockwise, the other one's rotating counterclockwise. That one gets slid off, and then this one's gonna get slid off too as well. Okay. So let's hit P for position. And remember, we don't have to hit the first position over here as I did the other one. I kind of made a mistake there. I apologize. But I'm going to hit like a keyframe about there. And then another one about around here. I just want to make sure that it actually lines up with the animation. So yeah, like around there, he should be slide off already. So I'm going to hit a keyframe right there. Zoom out. And then I'm going to put this to the side as well. Boom. And that's it. So when it goes to over here, that guy gets a slide off, and then this one slides right off as well. Perfect. And we're on track so far. Then we're going to do the same exact thing to these two guys right here. Okay. So let's go back to our project here, and we created, you know, another guy right here. Let's go ahead and utilize this smaller guy right here, and I'm going to put him on top of the previous two that I placed over here. Again, I'm going to add an effect to it, color correction, curves, light them up so we can become a little bit more visible. Cool. Alright, and now we need to decide where this guy is going to be placed. Now in our original footage, I put two right here, one over here, and then like another one like about there. So I think I'm going to put this guy right here. This one, since he's a smaller guy, I think I'm going to have this one. He's going to be the one that's going to he's going to be the one that's going to scale up. So let's do that. So the way we're going to do that is, let's see, we want to make sure that we get the contact just right. Okay, cool. So he makes contact about there. So let's see. The position for this guy is going to be around here. A little bit lower. And you see, this is why it's important to have both screens up, because it'll show you where you're at as far as your hologram screen here and your real footage. So it looks like that's the position where it should be. Okay. So the first things first, I'm gonna go ahead and rotate this, animate his rotation. And this one looks like we have to animate it for a long time, since this is the last guy that he's gonna touch. So let's go to the beginning. I'm gonna set a keyframe. And then let's go to the end on this one, and I'm gonna set another keyframe, and this guy's gonna rotate clockwise, and he's probably gonna end up rotating like a couple of times about there, and that's pretty good. Cool. Now he makes contact about there, right? Cool. And then he starts to scale up. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit S to bring up the scales position, and then I'm going to hit that keyframe, and then from there he scales up. So I want to make sure that I'm able to match it up to the point where the character halts his scale, and I'm gonna call it about there. Hit a keyframe, and I'm gonna scale that sucker up about there. So not only is he rotating now, but once the character makes contact with the hologram screen, you can see that it tracks over like with his fingers. So that's pretty cool. Perfect. That's good. I'm happy with that. Cool. Perfect. Okay, perfect. It's coming out to look really, really well. Again, you guys can do the same thing with the other elements. I'm gonna stay here with you guys just so you know, in case you guys run into any issues. But again, another color correction curves. I'm gonna light them up so it can become a little bit more visible. I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna animate its rotation keyframe, and then I think this one I'm gonna slide them off about here. So the rotation is gonna play there, and I'm gonna hit them counterclockwise. And I want this guy to rotate a few, quite a few times. They all should be at a different rate. It depends on you, whatever you want to do. But this guy's gonna animate like that, and then when he makes contact right here, I think I'm gonna place the position different. So his position is gonna be about, I think right here. There you go. Perfect. I'm gonna hit a keyframe, and then he slides off about here. Yeah. Another keyframe, and then place him over here. Oops, cool, perfect. So everybody's playing their role now. Boom, boom. Then here, boom. And then we only got one more guy to animate, which is this guy right here. And then that guy finally increases towards the end. So let's just put that last guy there. Okay. And then it's this guy right here. Again, I'm going to add an effect to him. Color correction curves. Light him up. And then he makes contact about there. So let's put him about here. Yeah. I'm going to hit the position. And then he slides off like about here. And I'm going to animate him to go this way. Perfect. And then just so we don't forget, we'll go ahead and animate this guy's rotation as well. And then up to about here. Another keyframe. Maybe this guy could move a little bit slower. That's fine. Alright, and there you have it, folks. You guys have your animated hologram screen right in front of you. You could always, pre-render it if you want. It's going to take a while because, just make sure that you put it at half and just pre-render it, see where you're at with it, and see if you're happy with it, see if you want to make any tweaks to it or anything like that. The way it turned out, it actually looks really, really good. If you want to continue to make additional changes to it, feel free to do so. But it turned out to be quite fun, and actually looks pretty good. You could definitely blur it out if you want. You can go to the composition and add like a fast blur or something like that, because I did notice that some of the lines here and the graphics on it look really sharp according to the whole blurriness of the entire footage originally, and so that thing should not be all that sharp. There's a bunch of different things that you can do to this. You can optimize this as much as you want. Just for the sake of the tutorial, I'm not going to spend too much time doing it because we're running short on time. But there it is. There's your hologram. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. I would be more than happy to respond. I would give you some information if you're having some issues, or if you want to finalize it with all this final footage and cinematic look. Let me know. I'll definitely guide you in the right direction, and I'll give you some pointers on how to get this done. Please stay tuned to my website, as I will be updating more tutorials in the future. I'm gonna be also more short films in my website. So just make sure that you guys follow up with me. You guys could also follow me on Instagram at jbriceno.com, and I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but just follow me on Instagram at jbriceno to stay updated with me. You could also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Briceno Arts, as you know, it'll give you more information as to the next tutorials. If you guys, again, if you have some questions or any concerns, or if there's some tutorials in the future that you would like to see, or you want to learn how to do some different things, or you have ideas, let me know. I'd be more than happy to put up additional tutorials on the things that you guys want to see. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.